Bright moments.
Bright moments.
Woo, thank you. I missed you guys. We've been gone for the summer. Did you miss us?
Yeah.
Well, we're back. And as you heard from Robert, we've got so many activities and so many things going on. Make sure you have your calendar out. You don't want to miss a thing. Not a thing. I'm so honored to have Dr. Larry Ridley with us tonight. Dr. Larry Ridley and I, we've been friends, well, I know, over 30 years. And 300 years. And I met him quite a few years ago. He was performing with Joe Kennedy and Dr. David Baker. I think we were at the International Association of Jazz Educators Conference in Atlanta. And we've been very close ever since. Dr. Ridley has been and continues to be an educator, in addition to being one of the finest bass players of all time. An educator and supporter, performed with Dr. Billy Taylor, who was also one of our advisors. Take the opportunity to go on the internet and look up Larry Ridley Bass. Look at his website, because there are just so many musicians that he performed with. I can't even begin to name them all. I'll try to name a few so that you'll know. Dizzy Gillespie, Dexter Gordon, Freddie Hubbard, Horace Silver, Art Blakey, Donna Washington, Betty Carter, Hazel Scott, George Benson, Sonny Rollins, Max Roach, Gary Bartz will be here in October, and so many others. If those of you who have Netflix, there's a documentary out right now called I Called Him Morgan. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but it is excellent. Thank you. Excellent. Excellent documentary about Lee Morgan, who was a very dear friend and colleague of Dr. Larry Ridley, and he is featured in that documentary as well. So, first of all, please let's give Dr. Larry Ridley a warm Virginia welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with my sister. We've been together for years. I've known her since she was
3.
You see why we get along, right? She's a wonderful person. You're very lucky to have her. And she's just into it.
Dr. Ridley is from Indianapolis, am I correct?
Indianapolis, Indiana.
Indianapolis, Indiana. And I know you were very much mentored by Dr. David Baker while you were there. But how, and don't tell me you walked, how did you get to New York and meet all these fabulous musicians that are on your resume?
Well, it's very interesting how I got to New York, because growing up in Indianapolis, Freddie Hubbard, great trumpeter, unfortunately passed on, and James Spaulding, the Montgomery brothers, Wes Montgomery, all of them. We had a lot of great musicians to come out of Indianapolis. J.J. Johnson, the great trombonist, on and on. And David Baker, of course, you mentioned him, who was just a triple threat, because he was a genius. You know, not only, you know, he started out as a trombonist. Yeah, he started out as a trombonist, and what happened, he was in an automobile accident, and it messed with his embouchure. Yeah. So, just showing how great he was, he picked up the cello, taught himself how to play the cello. Plus, he also, being on the faculty at Indiana University and the School of Music in Bloomington, Indiana, he became very close with Janos Stockard, the great cellist, and he became one of his students. And David, with his, I mean, this guy would play and perform and study and do everything. I think he had 36-hour days.
Wow.
I mean, seriously, he was just such a force for wanting to learn.
And you performed in his big band?
Yes.
And did he encourage you to go to New York, to leave Indianapolis and make it happen?
Well, when we were there together at Indiana University, in Bloomington, Indiana, Gunther Schuller came through with the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra, and we knew that he was involved in jazz. So we made it a point of bird dogging to find out where he was staying, and we tracked him down and we introduced ourselves. And he took to us, and he made it possible for us to get scholarships to come to the Linux School of Jazz. And it was there that I had an opportunity as a young man to study with the great Percy Heath of the Modern Jazz Quartet. John Lewis was one of the musical directors, Gunther Schuller, and there were so many great musicians that were in residence. Max Roach. In fact, being introduced to Max there and hanging out with him, and I played in a group that Max was the director of, and Ornette Coleman was there, and Don Cherry, and we played in the group together. And he told me that I should come to New York. So eventually that's how I did. And it was interesting because I'd gone back to Indianapolis, and Slide Hampton, who's also from the great Trombones, he was from Indianapolis, and he came through, he and Freddie, because Freddie had already left before I did to come to New York. And I was playing at a club. I had a gig in Indianapolis. I played for several months, 6 nights a week, 2 matinees.
That's a good gig.
Got that right. It was great, and all the great musicians that would come to Indianapolis, we had a chance, we found out where they were staying and introduced ourselves. And so it was there that we met Gunther Schuller, and he gave us scholarships to come to the Linux School of Jazz.
So you're in the right place at the right time. Yeah. So, I mean, we want to know, how did you meet Monk?
How did I meet Thelonious?
Yes. What an eclectic personality.
Seemed like I knew him all my life. You know, I can't remember. Oh, I know what happened. I was playing the Newport Jazz Festival because I worked with George Wein and the Newport Jazz Festival All-Stars. I was the bassist. And George had a gig for Thelonious, and Thelonious didn't have a bassist at that point. So George Wein introduced me to Thelonious, and that's how I became a member and worked for several years with Thelonious Monk.
Several years? I know that was an experience, some things you can't tell us, right?
Thelonious was a genius.
Yeah.
He was definitely a genius. He was very quiet, and he was a man that was very soft-spoken. So at one point, after I joined Thelonious's group, he had his son to play drums with us, Thelonious Jr. And so this newspaper columnist, who was a jazz columnist, he was asking, and they were interviewing us, and he asked Thelonious, he says, "Mr. Monk," we were in Japan, "Mr. Monk, how is it that you have your son playing drums with you?" Thelonious thought for a moment. He said, "Because it saves me money."
Straight to the point. Straight to the point.
Thelonious was amazing because he had these ways of responding in very short things. And I mean, short sentences. He didn't waste a lot of time. But you got the message.
You got the message loud and clear.
But that was one. And I was saying to myself, oh, Thelonious, don't do that. Because his son was nervous because when he started playing with us. And so I just told him, I said, Thelonious Jr., but we called him Two. And he's still around and doing his thing. And so Two he was all nervous and everything. I said, Two, just relax, relax. Just zero in on me and follow me, and just, you know, I'll keep you in motion there, so, you know, don't worry about it. Because he was...
Sure. How old was he? Just a teen?
He was just, yeah, he was a teenager. And Boy, he was so nervous. But I'll never forget Thelonious saying that. Thelonious had a lot of really nice things that he had the ability to shorten things when he would give responses. So, we have an adult audience here, right?
Pretty much, yes.
One time we were over in Europe playing, oh, no, it was in Japan. And, no, this was in Europe when he said this. What they asked Thelonious, how is it that, he said something about it saves him money, you know. But then we were in this, I forget the exact country that we were in, but it was a royal house where the duchess or countess or whatever. And so they had these different floors because for tourists to come, they're very important people. So I'm down on another floor, and all of a sudden I hear Nellie, his wife, because Nellie always traveled with us. And so she said, I heard her scream, and I rushed down and I said, Nellie, what's happening? Thelonious was in the Queen's bed. Laying up and looking up at the ceiling. And I said, and Nellie was having a fit, you know. Thelonious, you can't do that. Thelonious wouldn't move. He just sat up there with his So I said, Thelonious, you gotta get out of that bed, man. This is a national landmark here in this country. You can't be doing that, man. And he looked at me and he said, Larry, I just wanted to see what the bitch saw.
There you have it.
I said, Thelonious, come on, man. You can't be doing that. But he was a very interesting gentleman because he had ways of saying things in short statements.
Right. And his compositions were absolutely amazing. Amazing. And so after we have our talk, the group that's going to perform today, they are absolutely wonderful. You are going to be so impressed at the talent that we have in Virginia. No, we have talent in Virginia. Our musicians can stand toe-to-toe with anybody, right? And we're going to prove it. We're going to prove it tonight. And I just want to say this, though. You already heard about the exhibition that we have at the Valentine. This exhibition was a labor of love. And it's only a part of the information that we have been able to share. The research we did, we've been working on this particular project since 2013, 2014. And so what you see, we're just scratching the surface. But we had to start at the beginning. And we wanted to show everybody that Virginia had a role in the development of jazz as early as the early 1900s. I'm serious, it's true, we did. And one of the first personality that we're going to feature will be Bill Bojangles Robinson. Fabulous dancer, absolutely. What people don't know is that he changed the style of dancing. Tap dancing was more of a flat-footed style, hoofer style, but Bill Robinson took the style up on his toes. And he danced tall and elegant and sophisticated, and it was just incredible. Well, of course, I wasn't around then, but I've seen videos of it.
It was something else.
So did you have any experience, or have you seen him perform? Did you see him perform at all?
I never saw him perform live, but at films and things like that, you know, which he was involved in. He was an incredible gentleman. I met some people that knew him. Some of the other dancers around New York that were, you know, had the same thing. They were like, do the soft shoe and all this, as well as tap. But they had nothing but nice things to say about him. You know, he was such a wonderful person.
He was incredible. So I have a list of some musicians I want to ask you about. And I believe you may have some knowledge or maybe have performed with some of them. Tiny Grimes.
Tiny Grimes. Tiny Grimes, he played with Art Tatum. So,
The great Art Tatum. Any names that you don't know, please, jot them down, and afterwards have an opportunity to ask Dr. Ridley about them. I have some information, but feel free to talk to him after as well. But Art Tatum was, as far as pianists is concerned, he was considered the standard by which everybody else measured.
Well, all the piano players, talking about Wynton Kelly, Red Garland, Oscar Peterson, just you name them. When you mention the name Art Tatum, hands up and like they were praying to God, they said, oh, he was absolutely incredible.
He was incredible, and Tiny Grimes was from Virginia and played guitar. He played other instruments as well, but he was in Art Tatum's band for many, many years, guitarist with him. Did you play with Tiny Grimes at all?
Yes.
You did play with him too?
Yeah. Played with him at a club in New York, and also he was on one of the Newport Jazz Festival stages, and I had a chance to play with him there as well. He was a beautiful man too, very soft-spoken, but he played acoustically. But he had such a touch on that instrument, and all the guitar players, they threw up their hands, because he was one of the guys that really, and his step with, with so many different great players.
Now, anybody here know that there was a bass player from Virginia who taught Charles Mingus how to play jazz bass? It's true. His name was Red Callender. Did you know Red Callender?
Did I know Ray Callender? Is Fat Meat Greasy?
All right. Well, yes. It is.
Oh, listen. That man is something else, and such a beautiful, beautiful, soft-spoken gentleman. And I had the chance to meet back, all of those older players that came around, they took me under their wing. I was like a younger brother, and because I always gotten along with all the musicians, I was not one of these guys that was full of himself, he was just always so open, and just taught me so many things just being with him, and being on the bandstand with him. And I asked him a lot about Art Tatum, because I never got to hear Art Tatum live, but he had nothing but wonderful things to say about Art Tatum. And I can understand listening to the records even, Art Tatum, that dude was mean.
Certainly was. Here's another name, Al Gray, trombone.
Al Gray.
Also from Virginia.
Al Gray. Trombonist extraordinaire. And a fun guy.
Okay.
We did some things together as a part of the Newport Jazz Festival. And I knew him. And he had a sense of humor that was something else. But he was really a wonderful trumpeter. I love the sound that he got out of the trombone as well. And just wonderful to play with. Yeah.
How about pianist Walter Davis Jr.?
Walt Jr.
He was born in Richmond, Virginia. Walter Davis Jr. at the time was one of the youngest pianists to understand and be able to interpret bebop, and Bud Powell and Monk took him under the wings, and he was an extraordinary pianist. We brought him to Richmond, I think it was maybe in the 80s, maybe the 90s. It was the first time he had been back in many years. But it was wonderful to have an opportunity to hear him. Did you get a chance to play with him as well?
Oh yeah, we worked together with Philippo Jones's band. Yeah, he was a character too. He keep us laughing, And he was always very sharp. He designed
He
suits.
used to make clothes, and
Yeah.
he was a tailor.
Brother was mean. He'd walk around with his stuff on, you know, he was a living model, you know,
Yeah.
for his own stuff, you know. But he had a sense of humor too. And we used to talk, I mean, he had a way of laughing, you know, be saying something in between, you know, he'd break out in this rough, gruff laugh, you know. And he was just a fun guy. He loved Bud
Those
Powell.
weird eyes, you know, remember those real weird eyes, and he would look at you real hard like that, and you know, you kind of be afraid, but then he'd make you laugh. It was cool. And great.
That's what he would break out and say,
Yeah,
huh.
that was him. Yeah. But oh my God, he could really play piano. You'll get a chance to hear him in the exhibition. We did put together a montage of video film clips, so you'll get a chance to hear Walter Davis as well.
Yeah, he loved Bud Powell.
Yeah.
Loved Bud Powell.
Did you know Bud Powell's parents were also from Richmond?
No, I didn't know that.
And Buttercup Powell's wife was also from Richmond.
Oh, really?
She was an advisor for Richmond Jazz Society. Spent her last years here in Richmond with us.
Oh, I never got to meet her personally, you know, but I knew about her, you know. Oh, that's,
You're young.
yeah.
I'll just ask you a few more. Next month we have heads of state coming. And Gary Bartz, I know you played with, Larry Willis, you also played with Al Foster. Al Foster was born in Richmond.
Al Foster, yeah.
Drummer, was with Miles Davis for 13, almost 15 years.
You know, I worked with so many different drummers, so I've got a good recollection of what it felt like and being with them and hanging out with them. But Al Foster, he's got a beat and a thing with it, with the cymbal. He hits that cymbal and he can swing his, you know what else?
He could swing.
Oh, it's something else. And it's a pleasure playing with him. And you know, one of the things I found through the years, all the great drummers that I played with, you know, you have to form a marriage between the bass and the drums so that you're in sync with each other. And I was one of those guys, you know, I mean, and his beat on the cymbal, where he hit that ride cymbal, swinging into bad health.
All right, okay, we're in for it. From October, we're in for it. We're in
Oh,
for
he's
it.
something else. Tell him I told you that.
I will. And also, I'll take some time. I won't take too much time here, but afterwards, if there's some folks who want to meet you and have an opportunity to ask you some questions, I'm hoping that some of you will take the time to do that. But last of all, I'd like to ask you about our mentor, the maestro, Joe Kennedy.
One of the nicest gentlemen that you ever want to meet. He was such a straight up and down man. Never heard him curse or anything. He was just always very polished. And his wife was a wonderful lady too. And we had a chance to play. He was just such a great human being. And you know, I don't think there was a funny bone in his body.
Not at all. He was the same all the time. Do you remember, you may not remember, we were in Atlanta at the International Association of Jazz Educators. You played with David Baker, Joe Kennedy, was it Keith Copeland on
Might have been
drums? Might have been Keith Copeland on drums, I think, and you were on bass. And you guys were warming up. And Joe Kennedy was going through scales, warming up, and this man was sitting on the side, right beside me, and he was crying like a baby. I said, what's wrong? He said, Joe Kennedy is the only person that I know can play violin. He's just tuning up, and with such emotion. And that's the way he played the violin, with that emotion. He played the violin almost like a saxophone player plays the saxophone.
Yeah.
And he was just incredible, and I love the opportunity to be able to talk about Joe Kennedy because as our mentor and our very first advisor, he instilled in us to search out and honor the unsung heroes. Not everybody got the publicity that Duke Ellington or Count Basie or Ella Fitzgerald, but they're not the only geniuses. and that the geniuses walk among us. And that's the reason why we do our Jazz Preservation Project. That's the reason that you're here tonight.
Well, you know, you're my sister, and we've known each other for a long time, and I've always encouraged you and applauded you in terms of your. You got a gem here. She's not a diamond in the rough. She's a polished diamond.
Thank you. Thank you so very much.
That's true.
Thank you. And the last thing I'll say is also Dr. Billy Taylor was also one of our advisors. And we pattern a lot of the outreach programs we do in Jazzmobile. And I know that you're very much involved in Jazzmobile. So would you say a little bit about that as well?
I also played a lot with Billy Taylor's trio. You know, I worked for a couple of years with him on a variety of activities. He was one of the nicest gentlemen you ever met. He was always very immaculate, polished, and I never really heard Billy ever curse.
We'll talk about that later.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
I'm surprised.
Oh, look, in a way that it was loving and fun, and it's okay.
He did so much for jazz.
Yes, he did.
Being on the National Council of the Arts and establishing Jazzmobile.
Yep.
I don't know whether people here are familiar with the Jazzmobile program, but
Yeah.
Tell us more.
Yeah.
all right, go ahead on.
Yeah.
But the beauty of the Jazzmobile program was that Billy came up with this idea to, there was a float that they had that we all would get up on and go through the streets. It would have a starting spot, and then we'd go through the neighborhoods until we got to the place where we were going to just sit for a moment to do a concert. And it was beautiful because the kids would be following us. It was like, you know, we felt like the Pied Pipers, yeah. And he did so much for jazz,
He did.
being on the National Council, and a lot of the programs. He was very close with Nancy Hanks.
Yes.
And
what he did on Sunday morning.
And
Really
on
brought jazz
television, yeah.
to the forefront for a lot.
Plus he was on the radio.
And his radio.
Yeah, he did a lot. And he was always so immaculate.
Always.
And I don't think I ever heard Billy curse.
He was cool. He was cool. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, you know,
Cool.
I was trying to figure out how this dude, you know.
But we won't talk about us though, right? Colorful language, we'll call it. Okay.
Well, it's being multilingual.
In multilingual. We are linguists. So what some of you may not know though is Dr. Billy Taylor graduated from Virginia State College in Petersburg. Yes, he did. Yes. And right before he passed, I told him about the Jazz Preservation Project that we were working on. And he said, and I told him about the Johnsons' Happy Pals. He said, okay, well, you know, you need to interview me because I used to play with the Johnsons' Happy Pals. Dr. Taylor played with them, and that's how he paid for his college tuition. He would come to Richmond, play with the Johnsons' Happy Pal, hop on the bus and get back to Petersburg, get back to the school.
Wow.
Yes, he did. So that's an amazing story.
He's an amazing man.
Amazing man. Well, that's enough of us. We'll let the band play now. It's been a wonderful audience. Please, again, would you thank Dr. Larry Ridley for me?
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Very happy to also have his wife, Magdalena. She's here. They came down on the train yesterday from New York.
That's my favorite.
And his friends are here from Danville, Virginia. So thank you all for coming. Thank all of you. You've been a wonderful voice. Does anyone have a question that you have to ask right now? Want to wait till later? I'll give you a chance. Quick. Say what? Did you play with Jackie McLean?
J Mac, certainly did. On recordings with him too. Yeah, there's some recordings that we did for Blue Note Records. because I was a part of the stable of bass players myself, Bob Cranshaw, Paul Chambers. We did a lot of recordings there for Blue Note Records with the Animal Brothers. We used to call them the Animal Brothers. Alfred Lion and Frank Wolf.
And Frank Wolf, the Animal Brothers. Appropriate.
But they were really nice. And the thing that was so hip about recording for Blue Note Records, we'd always have at least 2 rehearsals. And so, you know, it wasn't that we just go into the studio cold or anything like that and go with the material that we were going to record. And it was funny, tell you a story about Alfred was always, you know, like the business guy, but Frank was always, he'd always be at our rehearsals and also when we played. And Frank, I had to stand up short.
Sure.
Frank would always be trying to swing to the music and he'd go,
On the one.
it must finish, it must finish.
But his heart was there.
Oh, he was a beautiful guy. Both of them, you know, Alfred was the more, you know, business person, yeah. But Frank, he was a character. But I love those. We call them the Animal Brothers, Frank Wolf and Alfred Lion.
Got it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I really appreciate your attention. Thank you, Dr. Ridley.
Thank you.
What a man.
Thank you.